2 plus 2 is always 4, right? It's clean, it's exact, and I mean, if you memorize the formula, you get the perfect result every single time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because math, it rewards absolute precision. But the second you try to apply that perfectly precise logic to speaking English, you end up sounding completely robotic.
Oh, completely. You sound like a machine.
Right. So welcome to the deep dive. We have a massive stack of linguistic notes, vocabulary guides, and dialogue research today. And it's all focused on helping you, the listener, break out of what our sources call the textbook trap.
It's a very real trap, too.
Yeah, the mission today is basically to figure out how to speak more like a native English speaker and just sound naturally comfortable in everyday conversation.
It is such a fascinating transition to make, honestly, because so many learners misunderstand what the word natural even implies. Like, they treat spoken English like a math equation,
Right.
where every syllable has to be, perfectly pronounced to equal a successful sentence.
I think a lot of people also assume sounding natural means, like, acquiring a flawless Hollywood accent.
Oh, yeah. The movie star myth.
Yeah. They think there is some finish line where they suddenly sound like a news anchor, and until they hit that point, they're just failing.
And that is probably the most damaging myth in language learning, according to the research. Because sounding natural does not mean copying every single sound perfectly. And it definitely doesn't mean adopting one specific regional accent.
Because there's so many accents, right?
Exactly. I mean, the English language changes drastically depending on where you are, your age, the social situation. A person in London, someone in New York, and a person in Sydney all have wildly different vowels and vocabulary, yet they all sound completely natural.
Okay, so if we throw out the idea of the perfect accent, which is a relief, honestly, what is the actual baseline we are aiming for here? Like, what does the research say natural actually looks like in practice?
Well, the sources define natural speaking with 3 specific words: relaxed, comfortable, and clear.
Relaxed, comfortable, and clear. Okay.
Right. It means the language flows from you with a sense of ease. The listener on the other side, they don't feel like you are struggling to, assemble a machine in your head before you open your mouth.
But there is a huge clash here, I feel like, because if a textbook is designed to be perfectly clear, wouldn't speaking exactly like the textbook be the absolute best way to be understood? Like, why does grammatical precision actually hurt you in real life?
That's a great question. It's because communication isn't just about transferring data from one brain to another. It's about social connection.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, textbooks have a very specific, limited job. They focus on formal rules so you understand the architecture of the language, like how the house is built. But real people walking around in the world, they prioritize a smooth, easy flow over, architectural perfection.
Okay, let's unpack this architecture idea, because I have an analogy.
Oh, I love analogies. Go for it.
So, learning from a textbook is like reading a manual about how a bicycle works. You read about the physics of the pedals, the tension of the chain, the mechanics of the brakes, and that is incredibly helpful information. Like, you absolutely need to know where the brakes are.
Right. You can't ride a bike if you don't know what a pedal is. So the manual definitely has value.
But actually getting on the bicycle and riding it down a busy street, that requires something the manual cannot teach you. It requires balance, it requires finding a rhythm, and most importantly, it requires momentum.
Momentum, yes.
Like, if you are dodging traffic, you can't pause to think about the tension of your bicycle chain. You just have to flow with the road, take shortcuts, adjust to the bumps.
That is a brilliant way to frame it, actually. Momentum is the key word there. Formal English from a book is static. It's a parked bicycle.
Parked bicycle, yeah.
But daily speech is in constant motion. When native speakers are talking to each other, they are not, grading each other's grammar. They are trying to share ideas and maintain a comfortable momentum. And the sources really emphasize this. Many learners struggle with this, but you can improve step by step.
So if the goal is to stop sounding like a parked bicycle, we have to figure out what textbooks get wrong about how our mouths actually move in the real world. Like, what is the actual physical difference in how native speakers talk?
Well, it really comes down to what linguists call the music of English.
The music, okay.
Yeah, native speakers use very specific physical rhythms and stress patterns because English is a stress-timed language, which means...
Wait, stress-timed?
Yeah, so it means it's not spoken like a flat robotic line where every word gets the exact same amount of time. The voice constantly goes up and down, louder and softer.
So you are pushing certain words forward with your breath.
Yes. You are literally using more physical force, like more air from your lungs, to punch the important words. This is called word stress. You don't say table with equal force on both halves. You punch the first part, table.
Table.
Or you say natural. You put extra physical strength on I important.
And if you put that physical punch in the wrong place, it completely throws off the listener, right? Even if you pronounce all the individual letters correctly.
Oh, absolutely. It creates instant friction.
Yeah.
The listener has to pause and decode what you just said because, well, the music was wrong.
But there is a flip side to this momentum, right? If we are pushing so much air and energy into the big, important words, what happens to all the small grammatical words in between?
They get squashed.
Squashed.
Completely squashed. Because your mouth is physically rushing to get to the next important stressed word, you just do not have the time or the breath to perfectly pronounce the small words. Linguists call these reduced sounds.
Give me a physical example of a reduced sound. Like, what is the mouth actually doing?
Okay, take the word to, T-O. In a textbook, it has a strong, round oo sound. Your lips make a tight circle. But in fast, natural speech, taking the time to make that tight circle, it slows down your momentum.
All right, it's like hitting the brakes on the bike.
Exactly. So the mouth gets lazy, but in a good way. It relaxes, and the word just becomes a quick, soft to.
Oh, I see. So instead of taking the physical time to say, I am going to the store, you just say, I am going to the store.
Yep.
You are saving your energy for going in store.
You are prioritizing the words that carry the actual meaning. That quick to is how native speakers keep the rhythm moving smoothly.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because this directly leads into something our sources highlight heavily, which is connected speech.
Oh, connected speech is huge.
Yeah, we aren't just reducing small words, we are actually smashing multiple words together to maintain that momentum.
The boundaries between words just completely disappear.
The classic examples in the notes are wanna becoming wanna, and what do you becoming, what-aya. So instead of what do you want to do, it becomes this single flowing sound, what-aya wanna do.
It is essentially one long word at that point.
Wait, hold on. I need to challenge this, because if I am a learner, this feels incredibly risky.
How so?
Well, if I go into a formal business meeting and I say what-aya to my boss, aren't they just going to think I am uneducated or lazy? Like, there has to be a limit to this.
It's a very valid fear.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the spectrum of formality here. Obviously, you would not write what I want to do in a formal legal document or, a highly professional email.
Right. That would be bad.
Very bad. But spoken English, even in a business setting, is far more relaxed than written English.
So even a CEO is smashing their words together.
Absolutely. If a CEO is grabbing coffee with a colleague, they are saying wanna and gonna. They don't even realize they are doing it. It's not about being lazy. It's about physical efficiency. If you insist on perfectly enunciating, what do you want to do in a casual setting, you actually sound tense. You sound like you are interrogating someone.
Oh, wow. You sound like a police officer, not a friendly colleague.
Precisely. Smashing those words together signals to the other person, hey, I am relaxed, we're in a safe social space, and I am comfortable with you.
That makes the concept of contractions make so much more sense, because we learn contractions in school like I'm instead of I am, didn't instead of did not, but textbooks often treat them as optional.
They are definitely not optional if you want to sound natural.
Right. If I am constantly saying I do not know, taking the physical time to hit the D, the O, the N, the O, the T, it sounds so incredibly serious. It sounds like I'm giving testimony in a courtroom.
That is the social distance we talked about earlier. Formal language creates distance. I do not know is a wall. I don't know is an open door.
Okay, so we are riding the bike, we are flowing with the traffic, we are stressing the big words, we're squashing the small words to keep our momentum, and we are using contractions to keep the social vibe relaxed. But to maintain that fast rhythm, you can't be using massive, complicated vocabulary all the time.
No, you simply don't have the time to compose a paragraph in your head before you speak. And this is a crucial point from the sources. Native speakers heavily prefer shorter sentences and highly common words in everyday speech.
There is a fantastic example in the research notes about introductions. Imagine you're at a party and you meet someone new. A learner who has studied grammar for years might want to prove their skill and say, I'm very happy to meet you.
And grammatically, that is a flawless sentence. It is beautiful on paper.
Flawless. But a native speaker will almost never say it. They will usually just smile and say, nice to meet you, or even just, great to meet you, 5 words instead of 7.
It lowers the cognitive load for everyone involved. When you use simple, expected phrases, the other person's brain doesn't have to work hard to understand you. They immediately recognize the phrase, process it instantly, and the conversation moves forward.
Yeah, why use 20 words when 5 will do the job better?
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is that this brings us to one of the most powerful tools in the entire deep dive today. Our sources call it response style, but it is really about the mechanics of active listening.
Yes, this completely changes how you interact. It is about what you are doing when your mouth is supposed to be quiet.
Right. Because in many cultures and in many classrooms, when someone else is speaking, you are supposed to be perfectly silent.
As a sign of respect.
Exactly. Silence is respect. You wait until they are completely finished, and then you take your turn.
But if you do that in English, the native speaker is going to panic.
They really will.
If I'm telling you a story and you just stare at me in dead silence, my immediate thought is, oh no, they don't understand me. Or they think I'm incredibly boring.
The silence creates anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Native speakers constantly use tiny one-word reactions to fill those silent gaps. They are throwing little verbal life preservers into the conversation to say, I am still here, I am listening, keep going.
Let's actually demonstrate the mechanics of this because the timing is everything. I am going to tell a really mundane story, and I want you to use those verbal life preservers from the source list.
Okay, I'm ready.
So yesterday, I was walking down to the grocery store to grab some coffee.
Yeah.
And halfway there, the sky just completely opens up. It starts pouring rain.
Oh, no.
And of course, I didn't check the weather, so I didn't have an umbrella. I got completely soaked before I even reached the door.
Right, I know the feeling.
That was perfect. Notice what just happened there. You didn't interrupt my momentum. You didn't try to take the microphone away and start telling your own story about the rain. But you used all these tiny filler words. Yeah. Oh, no. Right. I know the feeling.
You can add words like, sure. Totally. Or exactly to that toolkit, too.
They act as social glue. They keep the connection alive without requiring me to form a complex sentence.
I have to imagine this is a massive relief for someone learning the language. Like, it takes the pressure completely off.
Oh, it is a total game changer. You don't have to sit there sweating trying to translate a massive, perfect response in your head while the other person is talking. You can just smile, nod your head, and drop a TBR.
Totally or. That makes sense into the conversation. You are successfully participating in spoken English with zero grammatical stress.
It buys you processing time, it keeps you involved, it shows you're empathetic, and it sounds incredibly natural because it is exactly what native speakers do.
So all of this theory is incredibly empowering. We understand the physical momentum of speech. We understand squashing words like wanna. We understand using shorter phrases and active listening responses.
Yeah.
But how does a learner actually transition these concepts from their brain into their mouth? Like, how do you build the habit without feeling totally overwhelmed?
Well, the sources outline a very specific 4-step mechanical process to train your brain to leave the textbook behind. The steps are listen, notice, copy, and practice.
Listen, notice, copy, practice.
Right.
I really want to zero in on that second step, notice, because I think that is where the real psychological shift happens.
How do you mean?
Well, when we read a textbook, our brains are trained to notice isolated data points. We look at a vocabulary list and we memorize single words: apple, run, fast. But to sound natural, you have to fundamentally change what your brain is scanning for. You have to start noticing chunks of language.
Yes, linguists call this chunking. A phrase is just a block of words that are glued together in real life.
Right. Instead of learning the isolated word makes and the isolated word sense, you have to notice that native speakers constantly deploy the entire block. That makes sense.
Exactly.
Or they drop the block. Let me think. Or the block. Sounds good.
You stop treating a sentence like a puzzle you have to build from scratch every single time, and you start treating it like a collection of pre-built blocks. Collecting these everyday blocks is just a fantastic habit.
So the practical application is, when you are watching a movie or listening to a podcast, don't just write down the big fancy words you don't know. Write down the tiny, boring phrases that people use over and over again.
Write them down, and then move to step 3. Copy. Try to mimic the exact physical rhythm they used. Where did they push their breath? Which words do they squawk?
And then practice it out loud. You cannot learn to ride a bicycle by reading about it, and you cannot build muscle memory in your tongue by just thinking about the phrase. You have to physically say, sounds good, 10 times in your room until your mouth stops fighting the shapes.
And you don't need to overhaul your entire vocabulary overnight either. Just pick 3 natural blocks this week. Pick sounds good, that makes sense, and totally. Use them until they require zero mental effort.
There is a metaphor in the source material that I think handles the psychology of this really well. They talk about the grammar monster.
Aye, yes.
They suggest that learners need to leave their grammar sword at home. So what does this all mean? It means English doesn't have to be a monster you fight. You can leave your grammar sword at home.
I love that. I left my grammar sword at home today, too. It sounds a bit funny, but the psychological barrier they're describing is very real. Perfectionism is the enemy of connection.
When you are constantly guarding your sentences, terrified that you might use the wrong verb tense or miss a preposition, you are incredibly tense. Your brain is in fight or flight mode. You are fighting this invisible monster of grammatical judgment.
And the irony is, the person you are talking to doesn't care about the monster. They just want to know what you think.
Native speakers break formal grammar rules constantly. They start sentences and abandon them halfway through. They use the wrong tense because they changed their mind about what they were saying. It is messy.
The messiness is what makes it human. If we connect this to the bigger picture, natural English grows through real, imperfect conversation. And you sound your best when you just allow yourself to feel comfortable. The anxiety starts to fade.
So to pull all of these mechanics together before we wrap up, if you want to break out of the textbook trap, you have to embrace the momentum of real speech. Push your breath on the important words and let the small words squash down into sounds like to.
Stop resisting connected speech. Allow want to become wanna, and rely on contractions to keep the social distance warm and casual.
Stop trying to build massive perfect sentences and start collecting small, pre-built blocks of language. And most importantly, use active listening. Throw out those verbal life preservers.
Yeah, right. Exactly. To keep the connection alive while lowering your own cognitive load. Let the grammar monster sleep.
It is a process, but every small shift away from perfectionism is a step toward truly natural communication. If you are noticing these patterns, you are already doing the work. You're already on the right path just by listening today.
I want to leave you with one final thought today. A little experiment to prove to you that you already have the skills to do everything we just talked about.
Ooh, this is a great perspective shift.
Next time you are speaking your own native language with your friends or family, I want you to step outside yourself and pay close attention to your own physical voice.
Listen to how you actually sound in the language you are an absolute master of. Notice how many words your mouth naturally squishes together because you're speaking quickly. Notice how many tiny, meaningless filler words you use when your friend is complaining about their day. Notice how many formal academic grammar rules you completely ignore because you are just relaxed and chatting on the sofa.
You are definitely not speaking like a textbook in your first language. It's fast, it's broken, and it's full of shortcuts.
You are not a robot in your native language. You already know how to use momentum, you already know how to use social glue, and you already know how to prioritize connection over precision. Once you realize you already do all of this beautifully messy stuff in your first language, doing it in English suddenly won't feel so scary.
The blueprint for sounding natural is already inside you. You just have to grant yourself the permission to use it.
Beautifully said. You already know how to ride the bike. Now it's just about feeling the road. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep listening, keep noticing the chunks, and we will catch you next time.